Mark James in the house. How are you, my friend? Can you hear
Dandy,
me?
it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood.
It really is. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. for for those of us old enough to understand the reference.
Yep.
Um, so it's so good to see you. Just so people know who are watching right now on LinkedIn or YouTube, Mark James has been a member of Confidently Speaking for, oh my goodness, I would say going on 3 years now, right?
I think it's probably about 3 years. Yeah.
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 And so if you don't know what Confidently Speaking is, it's essentially an amazing program that I created about 5 years ago during COVID because I was like, how do I bring community together and how can I do it in a way doing things that I love, which is combining improv with how to help people build their confidence and build their toolkit as speakers. And so Mark has been a part of that program. I'm so delighted for you to be here. And
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm interviewing people from the program, the members themselves, because I'm a big fan of lifting up each other's voices. I want people to know who the members are and confidently speaking. And of course, what are some of the tools that or things that you've learned along the way from confidently speaking? And so I also want to get to know you, Mark. I want you to share who you are and your signature talk because you've been developing one for a couple of years. You've been getting more opportunities. So we're going to talk about that and just give as much value as possible for the people who are watching. That's
Okay.
it. That's my objective. Sound exciting?
Yeah. Let's do it. Anxious to talk to you. And by the way, you're being very modest about what you do, heading up Conflict Speaking. Everything that Meredith mentioned, she does it in spades. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Mark, tell everyone about you and how you serve your community.
Well, I'm a business consultant. That's my profession. I've been doing it in some form or fashion, either for myself and my own business, which, and this is my second business, and I've also done it in corporate America for over 45 years in various capacities in different ways. But basically, I help businesses improve the performance of their people and their operations. So my focus is on making sure the culture is right, because quite
Mhm.
often culture can be a really negative, have a negative impact on performance.
Yeah.
Engaging employees, making sure they're engaged, make sure that leaders have the right mindset and can do the things that need to be done to make sure culture is in the right place, because culture is greatly influenced by leaders and how they make decisions and what they do and don't do.
Right.
And then I also have a background in data-driven marketing. I'm actually certified by the Chief Marketing Officer Council in their model for marketing performance measurement. So I help organizations vet their existing or planned marketing and help them build the right metrics and measures so they can validate results. So kind of work across all those areas. I also have been giving back to the community in the world. I serve on actually 3 boards now.
Good for
I,
you.
I'm on the board of a behavioral health agency here in Northern Illinois where I live. I'm on the board of the alumni group for the University of Illinois where I got my undergraduate degree, and I just joined the board for National Speakers Association Illinois chapter,
That's fantastic.
in marketing. So exciting to be doing all those things, and it's just a way to give back and
Yeah.
keep my mind working all the time when I'm not actually working with clients.
Wonderful. Well, you have always inspired me. I've gotten to see you in action, and
Oh yeah, you have.
I've gotten to see you on camera. You were shooting some videos for Miles Masterclass last summer. I got to see you do that in person, which was extraordinary. And I've gotten to hear your keynote, and I would love to share with people your big idea, which you are very passionate about Einstein and Einstein's messaging and what he gave to the world at large. And I would love for you to just talk to us a little bit about why Einstein. Let's get that conversation started. And also, if you're watching and you have a question for Mark or for myself, please feel free to put that in the comments as well. Mark.
Yeah, well, let's back up in terms of what the inspiration was for it and the connection to
Yeah.
Einstein. Several years ago, well, about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was actually reading about how Einstein did his thinking in his work. And
Mhm.
I was always fascinated. I mean, the guy clearly, everybody would pretty much agree the guy was brilliant. I mean, he's considered one of humanity's greatest geniuses. And some of the stuff that he was able to develop and his ability to think through things in his mind, when the rest of us, are trying to figure out even how to begin to do that.
Right.
He was really good at it. So I was reading about the fact that there are 3 rules of how he did his thinking and his work. And when I read these 3 rules, I had this sort of theta wave went through my brain, and I went, you know what? These can apply to business. So being a business consultant, I immediately in my mind, I went from how Einstein did his thinking and his work to how these same rules can be applied to business.
Yeah.
And I thought through it long and hard, and I said, yeah, I can think of several examples that I've personally encountered in my career working with clients where these things come into play. So that was the inspiration for it. And so I developed then, because I'm working on doing more speaking. It's part of what I want to do going forward. I've never been afraid to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to do more public speaking, and in the arena that I'm most comfortable with, which is speaking to businesses and about how to improve your business and your operations and your people. So I developed what is my keynote talk entitled "Business Improvement Einstein's Way." Real novel and creative, right? But it basically covers the underlying premise that these rules that Einstein used to inspire his thinking and his work
Mm-hmm.
can be applied to business. Now, these rules are not rules that he himself wrote down or said, this is how I do it. These rules were actually attributed to him by another physicist by the name of John Wheeler, and they showed up in a Newsweek article in 1979. So that's what picked him up.
Well, I feel like we're all dying to know what the 3 rules are.
Well, if I tell you, I have to kill you.
Okay.
No,
I can handle it.
I'm kidding.
I know.
The 3 rules are these. Out of complexity, find simplicity. That's rule number 1. Rule number 1, from discord, make harmony. And rule number 3 is opportunity always exists in difficulty.
Oh, those are beautiful rules.
Yeah. So if you think about them, you take them one at a time. Simplicity out of complexity. It is a very common challenge or an affliction that hits a lot of businesses, and how we can even operate our lives. We let clutter get in the way.
Oh, and simple is hard. It's very hard to get to simple.
It can be, yeah. We allow complexity to sort of take over. And if we know anything about how Einstein did his thinking, his work, the guy was a master at simplifying the complex. I mean, he's got a 2 variable formula that explains the workings of the universe. E equals mc squared, that comes from his theory of relativity in 1905.
Right.
So he was a master at simplifying the complex. So that was one. The discord to harmony rule also comes into play as well, because there is so much discord that can seep into an organization.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even intentional. It may just because the way in which people are operating with each other, and things like competing interests and silos and politics can get in the way. So you have to figure out a way to find harmony. And harmony, the definition of harmony I use is that people helping each other to make a difference.
Well, can I pause you there for a second? I just have a curiosity around that, because you had mentioned you're on 3 different boards. And so when you go into an organization, you're working with them about the discord and finding harmony. How much are you incorporating the board itself? Because there's that trickle down effect. There's a lot of decisions being made in those rooms. So I'm just curious about that piece for you and how you work with organizations.
Yeah, the board is a very important aspect of any organization, and of course all the ones that I'm working with we're basically all nonprofit.
Right.
And the key is to make sure that everybody knows what their role and their responsibilities are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer, and I believe that this is the right way for a board to operate with the organization that they are providing oversight for. They're in a role to advise and consent. They're not in a role to actually run the show. That's up to the executives and the people in the organization itself. So the advise and consent piece is where boards play an important role. And you have to have great camaraderie, or you have to have some cohesiveness across the board as well.
Right.
Because, what they do can influence the organization, because in that advise and consent role, there is some influence they have on the organization. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm just always curious about that, just how much impact the board can have, especially in that advisory role to the executive or CEO. And so I just, that discord into harmony piece, I feel like I would imagine, play quite a role in that as well, in regards to how they're advising. So thank you for that. Thank you for speaking into that a little bit. It's just a curiosity that I had. And then the last one, in your words, I heard it, the messy middle.
Just the messy part, period.
The messy part, period.
Here's the reality. Even the best run organizations in the world run into difficulty from time to time. There's always difficulty that we're faced with. It might be external. The marketplace is doing something that causes us as an organization to change what we're doing and how we're serving our customers. It might be internal. There's a new way of doing things. The importance of managing change comes into play. And when change is afoot, what ends up happening as part of change, that you're going to go through what I call the swamp of change. Getting from where we are today to where we want to be in terms of doing something different tomorrow than we're doing today. There's that swamp of change in the middle where everybody's going to get a little wet and dirty, figuratively speaking, of course. So that's an example of messiness. But here's the thing: Einstein believed that actually the biggest breaks and opportunities come from problems.
I would agree with Einstein on that one.
Yeah.
I discovered that. I know, very different than the corporate world, but as an artist, we still go through those same phases, right? And I always found that if you gave up too soon, and I think that's where a lot of people, that's the biggest obstacle, is the obstacle of not giving up. It's actually working through the problems, working through the messy to get to the other side of it. And then when you do, that's where possibility lives.
Absolutely. And one of the best things an organization can do is to make, here's a trap that a lot of managers and people in leadership roles can fall into. They fall into a trap that they believe that now that I'm the manager, I'm the leader, I have to have all the answers. Well, I would argue that point, that's not the primary role of a leader or a manager. Primary role of a leader or a manager is to help their people be the best they can be. And the best way they can do that for the people as well as themselves, and then for the organization and that messiness you're referring to, is to encourage people to think and act as problem solvers. And when you encourage people to think and act as problem solvers, a couple of cool things happen. Number one, most people, if they've been selected properly for a job, they want to do the right thing. And they want to contribute. And so when you make people problem solvers, you give them the freedom to contribute. And I actually wrote an article several years ago that I put in LinkedIn. It's entitled "The Eyes and Ears of an Army." And I talked about how during the Civil War at the Battle of Gettysburg, Robert E. Lee was compromised because the eyes and ears of his army, which in those days was the cavalry, they were out near Harrisburg. So he didn't really know what he had in front of him in terms of the Federal Army, how big, where they were coming from exactly. So he was a bit compromised. I would contend the same thing happens in an organization, in that as a leader, you have two sets of eyes and you have 2 eyes and 2 ears. You have that many more eyes and ears around you among your people, and they see and hear things and know what's going on. They're the cavalry within your business. And so you've got to tap into their hearts and minds, because at the end of the day, the solutions to most businesses are not in a textbook. They're not even necessarily the consultants themselves like myself, and I'll explain what I mean by that, because it sounds like, what are you doing trying to unsell yourself, Mark? But it's all about making sure that you tap into the hearts and the minds of the people, because that's where the solutions to the business live. And what I mean by even consultants don't have all the answers. How I differentiate myself to this point is that there isn't, I will tell prospects this, there isn't enough money you can pay me or any other outside consultant to know your business as well as you and your people. Where I add value is I'm going to help you untap those hearts and minds, because that's where the solutions to business lie.
And I feel like what you do in your service to others is so important, because we all need those guides who can see things from a different point of view, that are not in it. Because
Yeah.
when you're so in it, sometimes it's hard to see how to connect those hearts and minds.
Yeah.
The other thing, I just backing up a little bit, when you were talking about, like, the leader doesn't always have all of the answers, and it's about giving your team, your organization, agency to problem solve. I would also say to that person who's been hired onto that team, one, you're there for a reason. And two, I feel that if there's good feedback loops within your team, then that's also really beneficial, because I can't tell you, just as a public speaking coach, when I'm coaching leaders, a lot of them will say, no one has ever told me that I've not done a good job on stage, right? Because their audience, their colleagues, their teams, whomever, they're coming up and just saying, great work, because they're probably afraid of giving the feedback to the person in the leadership position. So not only is it going to benefit you to help your teams problem solve, but also how do you give each other feedback as well, I feel is really important, because that's going to help you grow as a leader. If your team can come up to you and say, actually, I felt like you missed the point here, or maybe hire a coach, right? So I feel like it kind of goes both ways. It's advantageous for everyone.
Oh, it is. And in fact, one of the primary causes of performance issues in a business, it's the communication piece.
Yeah.
That's a messiness area because the communication is incorrect,
Yeah.
it's insufficient, or it's just plain wrong, or it's just missing altogether. And part of that communication piece, and again, when we get back to the problem solving piece of
Mhm.
engaging employees and engaging people in the organization, they need to know how they're doing, because if you leave people to figuring out what they need to do, quite often they may make decisions that may not be in line with what needs to be done. One of my favorite disruptive statistics
Yeah.
on this point is from the Conference Board. Did research a number of years ago, and they found for a typical organization, only 1/3 of the people, or excuse me, yep, only 1/3 of the people uh, uh, are productive in terms of their ability to contribute, meaning 2/3 are only 1/3 as productive as they could be, because they don't understand what they're being asked to do. Well, that's a communication challenge.
Clarity is kindness. Clarity is
Clarity
kindness.
is kindness,
Someone
and
told me Brené Brown said that, but I feel like
yeah,
I said it first, so I'm just giving myself cred.
go ahead. You got the well. Let's say you had the street cred on it, okay?
I want the street cred on it. Really quick, Mark, I just want to acknowledge we have some folks who are watching right now. So
Sure.
thank you for being here, Julie, Teresa. We have a LinkedIn user. Hytham, nice to see you. Everyone is just like reflecting back some of the nuggets that you have shared with us so far. And I want to say huge shout out to you, Mark. You have one of the most interesting brains. You hold so many, you hold so many stats and interesting quotes. And like, I love that you dig back into history. Like, you just, every time I hear you speak, there's like this new nugget of wisdom that you share, which is just, it's really fun. So keep it up. I love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you for
Um,
that. Thank
but
you for that.
but yeah, just talking about these rules to live by Einstein, Julie mentioned. Teresa's really loving the conversation. And then I will also just echo this, getting into the hearts and the minds of people. And I'm going to yes and that big time, because there's more, that connection is everything.
Yeah, and you leave people to wonder how they're doing. It's really not fair to them. And specifically, a tip I offer to organizations I work with: there's nothing wrong with an annual review for your employees.
Right.
But if it's the only time that they're getting feedback, that means for the other 364 days and 23 hours, they're not getting any feedback,
Yep.
which is a problem.
Yep.
Well, I always recommend think about how to, what I call, close the feedback gap.
Yep.
And you close that feedback gap, by definition, you bring it down to zero by giving feedback in the moment whenever possible.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. We're shifting gears just a little bit. No, we're not shifting gears, but we're shifting gears from organizations to entrepreneurs, solopreneurs.
Yep.
Can you help them out a little bit with that feedback loop? Because that's often something that I think about. So I hire coaches. I do the best that I can, but not all my coaches are sitting in my confidently speaking rooms, right? as my members, I'm not asking for the feedback right now live, but I will be asking for it later. But like, how would you recommend a solopreneur implementing a feedback loop so that they can grow?
Well, first of all, have the courage to ask people how I'm doing and how we're doing as an organization. That's number one. And then number two, be willing to listen and then respond. So have the courage to take a shot, because quite often you may be the problem as the leader or as the entrepreneur. And again, as the entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're successful because they got to where they are by sheer just brute force, and they had a driving vision, and they got to where they are today. But a lot of entrepreneurs struggle when they get to the point when their organization takes on people, and they have that vision is that product or that service, and they know that, but then they struggle with the other aspects because now the business is growing. So having the courage, the best leaders that I have seen, that I've observed or have read about, are those that do a couple of things. Number one, they're not afraid to ask that question. Tell us how we're doing, and be willing to listen and respond. And then the second thing is to encourage people to be involved, and not to feel like you have to make all the decisions. Empower your people to do their job. I'll never forget, there was a gentleman that I worked for when I was in the oil business many years ago, long time ago. And he said one day, we were having sort of a philosophical discussion in a group, and he was basically telling everybody that worked for me, he says, if you come to me and you want me to do something about what's going on, then neither one of us are doing what we should be doing.
Interesting. I love that.
Well, you always make sure you're giving the work back to the people, and that's part of that, giving them the responsibility and making them problem solvers. If all you're doing is taking on everybody's problems, then nobody's doing what they should be doing, and your people will probably not be as engaged. They won't feel as important. So those are some tips I would offer there.
I love that. I've actually been listening to an audiobook, strategic coach Dan Sullivan, and he talks about to consider your employees or your team as, instead of a cost to your company, that it's an investment. And I really like when you think about it, something as an investment, how do you get the best out of it then, right? So how do you support your team members? Do you give them further education? Do you tell them when they've done a really great job? It's a little bit like parenting, but it is. It's a way where you truly, that's the hearts and minds piece, right? It's like you truly care. You're investing in somebody else's livelihood, and when you do that, your business it will grow. Inevitably, it will grow.
Yeah,
right?
Your people are your best asset. We've all heard that a million times. And it's an absolute truism.
So true.
Now, I would draw the line on the parent situation a little bit here.
Well, I don't mean it in a condescending.
I'm not taking it that way. But here's the tip I would offer, because I've seen a lot of organizations and leaders do this. What makes the other piece that makes a leader really great are the ones that coach rather than simply direct traffic.
Well, I don't think a good parent directs traffic either.
Well, good parents should coach. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
But I see a lot of leaders that don't coach, and they're interested in directing traffic, and they're just interested in making sure people do their job a certain way.
Yeah, I would agree.
That devolves into a parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
And that runs counter to that spirit that we're all in this together and everybody contributes.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. We have a couple questions. So I'm gonna ask you this question, because I love, Julie, you asked the question, what's the best way to ask for feedback? And you somewhat answered that. So I would love for you to answer that question. And then I, of course, have my thoughts on this too, but I would love your thoughts on how do you ask, and then how do you give the feedback? Because I do feel that people it depends on where you are in the process of whatever the thing is that you're asking for feedback about. So give us a little bit more insight there.
Well, there are a lot of techniques and formal ways to give feedback, and I'm not down on any of those, because they all have their place in the workplace or in organizations. But what I find is the most effective and really the easiest, you don't have to dim the lights in the building, you don't have to create a process, is just simply ask people and engage in conversation, have more dialogue with people. In fact, I talk about using what I call, in this respect, the 13X rule.
Yeah.
Whatever your current cadence, and this is part of answering the question, Julie, as part of your cadence in working with your team, and your team is your people, whether you're on a team and you're not a leader, but you're working with people, or you're a leader or a manager at a local level with your team, whatever your current cadence is or frequency of communicating with that team, take it up by 13 times. Now, the example that I use is that let's say you do a town hall meeting with your employees once a quarter. Taking up 13 times, you're going to do it weekly. The frequency of the message trumps the quantity of the message is kind of the underlying theme here. So to answer the question, Julie, really, you don't have to over concentrate on having formal systems, and formal systems are fine because sometimes they're important and you want to capture and document stuff. But just on a day-to-day basis, just having those conversations and having dialogue. And as part of the dialogue is doing a heck of a lot more listening than talking. In fact, I mentioned earlier, we have 2 eyes and 2 ears. We only have 1 mouth. So let's use our eyes and ears more than our mouths, especially as leaders.
I love it. I love it. One thing that I've learned to do, and I have found it helpful in almost every situation, is asking a very simple question first, which is, what have you tried already?
Yes.
What have you tried today? Right. And then people can tell you what they've tried already. And then from there, you can start to build upon the feedback loop as well.
Yeah.
For me, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Finish your thought, and I'll come back with some.
Well, and then, in confidently speaking, I have a feedback loop just in terms of how do we give and take the feedback when we're presenting. And so oftentimes, let's just say you're in the infant stages of building your presentation. You don't want to get overwhelmed with too much feedback. You're just looking for, how does the introduction sound?
Yeah.
Or can you tell me about this transition here? So I feel like when you are asking for feedback, it's also really helpful to be very clear to the person what kind of feedback you're looking for.
Yeah, break it down and sort of define the parameters of what I want feedback on. So yeah, with respect to what I just said about X, let's talk about that and break it down, because you've probably noticed this whenever you're in meetings with people. Everybody's got their own view of the thing, and everybody's got their own agenda. And quite often, I see that. I've been in meetings where we'll be talking about X, and the person to my right will say, "Well, what about Y? What about coffee break?" And we're talking about some work process. Comes out of nowhere. You have to be respectful of the fact that that's something that's important to them, but you have to keep the conversation on track. And to your point, yes, you want to put guardrails, not guardrails, but you want to define the parameters about what we're talking about now, and then we get to the other pieces. The one technique I was going to mention earlier, and I apologize for interrupting, but this is a technique that you can use with employees, and it goes hand in hand with that problem-solving approach or mindset.
Okay.
Is something called the 1-3-1 method. This is not something I developed, but it's something I came across in my research just for my job and just for the signature talk. The 1-3-1 method says that when you're a leader or a manager or supervisor at a local level, and someone comes to you and says, "Hey, we got a problem." The one in the 1-3-1 method says, "Well, tell me what the problem is. Put the problem in your own words as an employee. Tell me what it is." Well, there's a machine broken down on the production floor. Okay, well, which machine is it? What happened? How did it start? Were there any noises? You get some specifics and get the employee to tell you and define the problem in their own words.
Okay.
That's the 1 in the 1-3-1. The 3 in the 1-3-1 then is to ask the employee, what are 3 options we should consider to solve this problem?
Brilliant.
And then the last one, and here's the $64,000 question. You ask the employee, what do you recommend we do? Now that can be unsettling and a little bit uncomfortable, because as a manager, as a leader, you're giving up some, perhaps you perceive you're giving up some authority. But here's the reality. Quite often, because that employee is closer to the problem, what they often recommend is the right way to go.
Yeah. They'll come up with a solution faster.
Yeah. And that, if you think about it, that goes hand in hand with the problem solving mindset. When you take them through that 1-3-1 method, you're getting them to think like a problem solver.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So Mark, just to tie it into the signature talk piece, because we just got so much information and wisdom from you. You broke it down into Einstein, these three principles that Einstein shared. And so I would imagine your big idea is Einstein and leadership, how Einstein, right? So I want you to articulate your big idea to everyone. And then have you broken it down, those 3 questions? Is that your signature talk?
Yeah, I go through in the talk. I actually begin by asking people about time travel. Believe it or not,
That's right, you do.
I
Yeah.
do. And I won't reveal. So if you ever have an option to listen to it, I don't want to spoil it.
Always leave them wanting more, Mark.
That's
Always
right.
leave them wanting more.
So I engage the audience right away by talking about time travel, and I ask them a specific question about that. But yeah, the meat of my talk is around those 3 rules and how to specifically apply those 3 rules to a business. And we've talked about some of them here as tips and actions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, fantastic. So for those who are watching right now, when you're thinking about your signature talk, ask the question, what is my big idea?
yeah.
And then Mark, luckily he had his big idea followed up with 3 rules, right? So that power of 3, most people can't really retain more than that. So
Yeah.
breaking down that signature talk. And then of course, I feel like the part that's also really crucial is, what are you asking your audience to do with this information? And so I'm curious, can you help us out a little bit? Share with us what's your call to action for your audience? What are you inviting them to do?
Yeah, actually, what I asked them to do is actually do a thought experiment that Einstein did when he was 16 years old. And a lot of people misunderstand that Einstein, he was definitely a genius,
Mm-hmm.
but fancy math was not a thing for him. He was, in fact, if you look at the theory of relativity and a lot of his writings, most of his math, not all of it, and some of it's kind of complicated, but most of it is around simple algebra you can find in a high school textbook. His whole thing was about thinking in his mind, doing experiments and moving things around and thinking through things and coming up with, until he can see the principles of physics and others with crystal clarity. I argue we can do the same thing. So my big idea, and I do this as an exercise at the end, is I take people through a thought experiment where I want them to imagine a beam of light, like Einstein was doing when he was 16 years old. And I talk about, let that light lead you to how you can apply some of the things I just talked about to your business, to get rid of clutter, to get to a place of harmony, and to find those opportunities that are existing or do exist in your business. That's my big idea, is to apply these things so that you can come away with your own theory of relativity for your business.
Do you ever have people, do you ever hold them accountable? Send them to me. Let me know what those action steps are that you came up with in that guided meditation at the end, that thought experiment.
Yeah, I encourage people to have a conversation with me, and quite often what I've begun to do now when I do a talk, I will ask the sponsor or the people who engage me to do the talk, if you've got the time to put in your schedule, I will do a one-on-one, not a one-on-one, but I'll do a private reception session where I will field questions and we'll talk about specifics that the audience wants to talk about. So I'll add that as a value add when I do a talk.
I love it.
Anyway, I might as well spend some time with everybody who wants to spend more time with me.
This is me brainstorming. I'm rough drafting and doing this live with you right now, but I'm curious if you could utilize Talkadot at all to get them to put some of their responses in there as well.
I use Talkadot.
You use Talkadot. Tell me how you use it. I would love to hear, because I interviewed RL Moody, who is the founder of Talkadot, yeah. I believe last month, a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know what Talkadot is, it's essentially an amazing tool for speakers to get audience feedback, to be able to keep up with the people who gave you feedback. So for leads, to get testimonials, it's an incredible tool. And then you can send that data back to the event planner, show them how much your audience loved you. And it's also a really wonderful tool for you to grow as a speaker. So tell us a little bit about how you use it, because I'm just curious, because I got excited about what your thought experiment was there.
Yeah, well, what I'm doing with it now, I'm kind of in the early stages. I've been on Talkadot for about a year now, so mm-hmm. I'm building up the data on all my talks, and I've been getting very, very good reviews. 100% valuable sessions when I talk. So I'm building that up, and then I've also put my public profile into Talkadot, because as you know, Talkadot is making an effort now to reach out to the people who book World
Yep.
and giving access to all of us who are members at Talkadot so that we get some exposure. So I'm going to be using that as a tool to hopefully generate some more opportunities for me to speak.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, so the piece is, I'm just curious if you could implement the question, what are some of those things that you're going to implement based off of the thought?
Yeah, well, and again, I always encourage the audience to contact me.
Great.
I'm happy to have a conversation. There's no obligation. If you have a question, tell me how you're applying, because
Yeah.
we have a LinkedIn user that asks, "What are you asking your audience to do with this information?" So just to expand on what I said already, think about how you can take at least one thing I've talked about today, just one tip. Just go back and apply it
Yes.
and try it, and come back to me and tell me how it went.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you maybe and if you're struggling with something on it, give me a call and I'll help you through it.
I love it. I love it. Well, anyone would be just silly to not work with you, Mark.
Well, I agree.
I would agree. Yeah, they'd just be silly. So before I love it. We've been talking for 36 minutes. I could talk to you all day long.
Yep.
So before we say goodbye, just tell us a little bit. You've been in Confidently Speaking for a few years. You've been a member. It's been such a joy to have you in the group. What are some of the things that you've taken away from that group? Why do you show up every week?
Well, I mentioned this to you the other day because we talked this in our last session this week on Wednesday. I have picked up valuable stuff to help me as a speaker in a number of different areas. It isn't just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The improv piece is important because it really helps you to think on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the challenges that I have personally that I want to improve on is that I don't want to sound too corporate. I spent a lot of my career in the corporate world. So as a speaker, I don't want to sound corporate. I want to add some energy and some different things to how and what I talk about, so that I'm not just a guy coming in and giving you a download, because the corporate world is full of people who do that all the time.
All the time. And my big thing is to be unforgettable. And so in order to be unforgettable, you have to figure out how to differentiate yourself from the others. And so
Yeah.
I love that you're working towards, and you don't sound corporate. You've really grown quite a bit as a
Well,
speaker.
thank
It's
you.
been super fun to watch your journey.
Yeah.
For those who are watching right now, here is a handy QR code. So if you're not on your phone and you have your phone like I do, you can just scan that bad boy right now, and then you can follow Mark, connect with Mark. That leads right to his website, so you can find out more about him, and then follow him here on LinkedIn. Because Mark is always giving away wisdom. He's an incredible human. And you're also going to be with us at the retreat, aren't you, in Denver, Colorado?
Yeah,
in October.
looking forward to that. One of the a colleague of mine a number of years ago said, what do you want to be known for? And I don't have a dog, but his response was, I just want to be the person my dog thinks I am.
Amazing. So I don't know how to respond to that one. It's making me, I'm like rearranging the furniture in my head a little bit. I had a dog who passed away, and I'm like, yeah, my dog thinks I was pretty cool. I get it.
Yeah, I think and I mean that in a positive way.
I know.
I mean, you basically, your dog, they look up
They
to
love
you
you no matter what.
figuratively.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Mark.
time.
Oh, it's always such a pleasure talking with you. Have an incredible weekend. And thank you everyone for being here. And